Welcome to Film It Now. I'm your host, John Green. With me, as always, is Brian D'Almeida. And today we have our first special guest on the show, Aaron Bray.
Hello. I always hoped my first podcast would be in John's bedroom. So
yeah,
this is a dream come true for me. Yeah.
Aaron and Brian, all three of us went to Full Sail, all went to school together. I think we were all in different cohorts. We were in
different cohorts, but we worked together on a lot of films.
Worked together on a lot of films, and miraculously, we're all in Los Angeles now, still working on projects together, which is great. Aaron,
haven't given up yet.
Yeah, Aaron's he's a filmmaker, he's a writer, he's an actor, and what else?
All of that above stuff. Yeah,
a little bit of everything. Kind of how everyone who
jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah.
Though I'm trying to work on my writing and acting.
Yeah.
Recently retired background actor, which we can.
Yeah, I want to discuss that. Yep. I don't know how many people out there. Everyone watches movies and they see background extras.
Right.
But I don't think anyone knows what they do. What is the life of a background extra like? What do you do every day?
So, I was in the Army. There's a motto in the Army, hurry up and wait. The motto for background actors is pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
A lot of sitting around doing nothing until they're ready for you, and then just kind of crossing the camera. It's not glamorous.
Yeah.
But, it can pay the bills, and for somebody like me who thrives on set and just loves being there and seeing the process, it gave me some access to lots of things I wouldn't have had access to otherwise.
Yeah.
I've been on set with John Malkovich, Reese Witherspoon.
So you got to tell me about the John Malkovich.
Okay.
What film was that?
Space Force.
Oh,
the Netflix
really?
show Space Force.
Nice.
So I get booked for these things. It's before they had some code name. It wasn't even called Space Force. It was called Hexagon or something random like that. So you never know what you're walking into.
Yeah.
But I like that show, The IT Crowd, and one of the characters, Jimmy O Yang, plays Jen Yang on The IT Crowd. We walk onto set. I'm like, oh, cool, it's Jin Yang. He's in this show. And then I turn around, I'm literally right there. I'm like, oh, and John Malkovich is also on the show because he's standing right there. So it's always a surprise. You show up and you never know who's going to be there. The most recent one I did was a tennis movie. That's all I knew about it. And they, the assistant director says to us for our first scene, they're like, okay, when Will Smith crosses this corner, that's when you go. And I'm like, oh, Will Smith is in this.
So you didn't even know
I didn't even know
Smith's movie.
I didn't even know.
So when they
don't tell, that's another thing about being background. They tell you nothing. They tell you what time to show up, what to wear, but they don't tell you anything about the project or anything like that. So yeah. Wow. You're literally the lowest on the totem pole.
That's crazy. But how?
But yeah, good experiences, good stories, but not the most glamorous or best paying work. So there's a reason I've been doing it for 4 years. There's a reason I retired and retired.
But you just retired, right?
Yeah.
Because you were telling me, it was last week. You were still on one, right? What pushed you over the edge?
Okay,
I'm done with this shit.
So I'm done with this shit. That's a good way to describe it. So this was the straw that broke the camel's back. Another TV show. Major studio show, so they have resources. I don't know if I should name the studio or not.
No, if we talk trash about people on the show, people or studios, keep it.
It's one of the big six. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. It's one of the big six studios. It was their show. So Malibu beach scene.
Okay.
It was last Monday. It was a week ago. Last Monday. Remember the day the wind was blowing here so bad.
It was really bad.
So it was really bad in Malibu.
Mm-hmm.
Sand blowing from the beach. Oh. Have you ever had sand hit you in the face?
Oh yeah.
And they're just like, oh, stand on the side of this building. I'm like, well, when the wind blows that way, it's fine, but when it blows the other ways, every which way in direction, and
so there's no escaping the sandstorm that you're in the middle of here.
Right, exactly. No escaping the sandstorm.
Fantastic.
Sometimes the crew treats background actors like people. Sometimes they don't. This was one of those times, you know, I've worked film crew myself.
Mm-hmm.
I have respect for every job, everything, but
Yeah.
combined with the sandstorm and a wardrobe person on a power trip, that was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Was it like one of the wardrobe assistants, like not the key wardrobe or key costume
you
person?
know, I don't even know, but I had wardrobe, I got approved.
Mm-hmm.
I was standing around for a half hour. They're like, oh no, we're gonna have you change into this instead. And
cool.
They're telling me that as sand is blowing in my face, and I don't know if it was just like a critical mass of everything, and I'm like, I am done.
That does not sound like a fun time at all. That sounds like utter misery.
Yeah, exactly.
It does.
So I tell the production people in charge of background, I'm like, I don't feel comfortable doing this anymore. I don't feel safe on this set. I think I'm gonna leave. And they're like, oh, okay, sure.
Yeah, the moment you tell them I don't feel safe, they're like, especially because we're in the middle of pandemic right now, so they're probably like, oh shit, what can we do?
Right, with all the and you know all the COVID restrictions, which they've been pretty good about, but still, I was surprised like how polite they were about it. I mean, I'm literally going in saying like, I'm leaving. Yeah. I'm quitting this job that you booked me for good reason. But it was just an interesting experience all around. And it was that moment I decided, I can do other things. Yeah. I can do other things to pay the bills. Yeah. And support myself. And I don't have to do this anymore. So
cool. Moving on. I mean, I don't think anyone goes into the industry saying, I want to be a background extra.
No.
So I'm glad you're moving on.
Some people do.
Really?
I've worked with a lot of career background who
really
they do that and they have no other aspirations whatsoever other than to do that. It's interesting.
That's really interesting.
But
that's really their end all be all? Like that's their end goal is to just stay as background actor?
That's really their end all be all.
What's the average pay, like day rate for a background extra?
Minimum wage.
Just minimum wage. So
minimum wage. Yep.
These people are perfectly fine making minimum wage for the rest of their lives.
Minimum wage, if you're SAG, it's a little bit more.
Yeah.
But still,
was that like $150 a day?
Yeah. It's a little bit more. So minimum wage is like $120 for 8.
Okay.
The benefits are good.
Yeah.
The overtime, not the benefits, but the overtime.
Yeah.
So if you work,
well, if you're SAG, I guess you do have benefits there.
So if you work a 12-hour set, 12-hour day, that's some pretty good overtime actually.
Yeah.
Which happens a lot, but
12 hours is what, time and a half?
Yeah. So it's time and a half. Up to 10 hours is time and a half, and after 10 hours, anything after 10 hours is double time.
Yeah.
How consistent was the work for you, Aaron?
Once quarantine was lifted and filming was starting up again, I was getting booked like 2 or 3 days a week, which is good. It's not the kind of thing I wanted to do every day.
Yeah.
But
it's a good way to pay the bills, work 2 or 3 days a week, and then that gives you freedom to do some other stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe.
Exactly. Yeah.
Would it be correct to say that I feel like it was your objective as a background actor to eventually make enough connections and be on screen enough to where you get a better or more supporting role in something?
That was one of mine, and it's funny. Going back to Full Sail, I'll mention all of our favorite screenwriting instructor, Jenny Jarvis.
Yep.
She is the one, before I left Florida, she's the one who suggested, because I wanted to be a writer. I mean, still do, but back when I left Full Sail, that was before I had any acting aspirations, that was my thing, to be a screenwriter. And Jenny was like, oh, you know what, you could register at Central Casting and then just bring a notebook with you and write stuff down while you're waiting, because there's a lot of waiting. And the way she described it, and that's kind of what it was. Yeah. So I did get a lot of writing done.
You're sitting on set in all this downtime and you're just writing, working, waiting.
Exactly.
Do they let you take a laptop or anything on set, like where you can write on that, or you literally have to take a notepad?
I've seen people bring laptops. Some sets are stricter than others about people having phones out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll have a notebook. I'll usually have a notebook and write stuff down and just transfer it later. But
yeah, that makes sense.
I don't know if that answered your. Brian, you had a question back there, and I feel like I went off on a tangent and got off track. So I don't know if I answered your question or not.
Was your goal as doing these background gigs? Is it to then get into more of a supporting role, or is it to get more connections with people in the industry so that you can have the reputation of being a writer and pitch projects to those people?
Okay. I think I originally just began background just as something to get my foot in the door, see how it kind of worked on set.
Yeah.
And then I guess you could say being on set as a background actor, I was kind of like bit by the acting bug.
Yeah.
And I'd see the principles and stuff, and I'd be like, oh, there was a time, like once upon a time, when I wanted to do that when I was much younger than I am. I'm like, why don't I pursue that? So
yeah.
So I think as a result of being on set as a background, it kind of reminded me of my aspirations.
Yeah.
In film and television, and I just what's the word? Yeah, like I said, I got bit by the bug, and so it eventually led to something. I'm rambling here. We can change the subject in a second, but it eventually led to me wanting to get more involved in supporting roles and things like that.
Yeah, cool. Did you ever have? I don't think a lot of people probably know about this, but there's your typical background extra, right? But then you have featured background extras, right? Mm-hmm. Did you ever have any featured roles on the show or anything like that?
I did, and I have a few good stories. Let me tell you about my first background role ever. And I don't know if I've told you about this or not. I first got to LA. First month I was in LA. I had registered at Central Casting. They book most of the films and TV shows for background. And they're like, we need people who are willing to be naked on camera and it was for the show Masters of Sex.
Yeah.
And it was a scene at a nudist camp. And they're like, so we need, and there were like 200 people. Yeah. And they're just putting them around on these different places. They're like,
is everyone naked?
Everyone's naked. They gave us like these blue disposable robes that we had to wear in between sets and stuff. But yeah, that was my first experience doing background acting.
That's quite the experience.
So that was interesting. They're like, we want we need some people to play volleyball. I'm like, oh, me. So and that was a long shoot. I want to say that was like 18 hours.
Oh, wow.
No, it wasn't that long because they would have had to pay us for 2 days. It was close to 16.
Because after 12, don't they have to start paying you for another?
After 12, they pay double. They pay double time. And then after 16, they have to pay you for another day. Like a whole nother day. Hour is like an extra day's pay.
Oh, wow.
This may sound like a really silly question, but if they ask you to do more outrageous stuff like being nude, do you get paid more for that?
Well, this one, it was the base pay was like 4 times pay. So it was like the nudity bump or whatever. But
that makes sense.
I watched that episode of Masters of Sex, and I'm only in it for a few seconds, and you can't even tell it's me, but I'm like, oh, there I am.
You remember? So you remember volleyball. Where you kind of were in the scene, and you were able to like pick yourself out.
Because it was the only volleyball scene, so I just watched the volleyball. And, but
that's funny.
So
I remember seeing you in an episode of Shameless.
Yes,
you were in one of the bar scenes there.
Yeah, I think as far as getting featured, you have to just kind of be. What's the word? You have to kind of be assertive and willing do stuff. So this scene in Shameless you're talking about was in a gay bar. So I was like an extra in a gay bar, and the crew, you know, the PA. There's always one PA who's in charge of the background.
Yeah, and
she was like, "We need people who are willing to be like a couple with another man." I'm like, yeah. I mean, why not? If it's gonna put me on camera. So they put me in a spot right next to
to the main actor.
Right next to the main actor,
the redheaded
Cameron Monaghan.
Yeah, it's the kid that plays the Jedi in Jedi Fallen Order, the video game.
Oh, okay, and he's also the Joker in in Gotham. Mm-hmm. But that actor.
So you're sitting right next to him.
I'm sitting right next to him, and I know it's just willingness to do whatever they ask. So I'm like, I'll do. I mean, and I still kind of am. I'm like, I don't care. I'll do whatever.
Is it like, would you say it's like the willingness to put your pride aside in order to do things that some people would be uncomfortable doing in order to be on camera?
I don't know if I necessarily, I mean, yes, in a way, but I don't even know if in those instances I did really put my pride aside. I was fine. I mean, I was just fine being, I don't feel like I, went against my own morals or anything, being naked or being in a gay bar. Or, I was I was just fine. I was just fine doing.
I mean,
that.
it's acting. It's an art. Like, no, that makes sense.
Yeah, I wanted to ask because I feel like as like the public or the audience, there's like a perception or persona created when people view you in those scenarios on media. I feel like.
Oh. I mean, that's probably fair. Some people are that way.
That's
I think
fair.
Yeah, a lot of people probably don't want to do certain things because they don't want their family to see that or that, or they're embarrassed of certain scenarios that they're in.
That's a good point. I guess for me, I'm just like I'm just an actor and I do what they tell me.
That's crazy. So do you have any crazy, with the exception of your most previous scenario that caused you to quit, but do you have any just crazy outlandish things that happened on set, actors blowing up, or I don't know, something crazy that's happened on set for you?
I definitely, I mean, a couple of times there were famous actors, just kind of getting to see them interact kind of shatters your image of them. Yeah, it's just they're real. I think what it boils down to is they're real people just like you and me. Mm-hmm. Seeing them in person, they're larger than life, and they get frustrated too. Yeah, something happens, and and some of them deal with it better than others. Yeah, So, does that answer your question?
No, it does.
I mean, I've seen famous actors, mm-hmm. something doesn't go right and they get up and swear and walk off set, things like that. So,
I feel like, when we view an actor like Tom Hanks, for instance, we have this perception or we have this idea that they think that's a really good person because of the stories that they're in. And then you meet them in person and you're like, everybody's human. No one's perfect.
I've never been on set with Tom Hanks, but I did see him at a bar once. And really? And it's funny how he just said, "Oh, they're not larger than life." He was larger than life. Oh my gosh,
Is he tall?
He's a tall man. You wouldn't even notice seeing him. Yeah. I'm just like, wow. So that was incredible.
I saw this funny picture the other day. Someone posted on Facebook or whatever, but it's this dad took a picture of his little girl. He saw Matthew Broderick mm-hmm. in the street walking. Right. I don't know if it was LA or New York, whatever, but he's like, "Oh, you're Matthew Broderick. I want to get a photo with you." And in the background, he was walking with Tom Hanks, and Tom Hanks has his hat on. He's just standing there holding some groceries. The guy didn't even notice that Tom Hanks was there with him. That's too. Funny. That was pretty funny.
Oh, speaking of seeing Tom Hanks in a bar, I was this has nothing to do with background acting, but just mm-hmm. this just thought of this too. I was in the same bar down in Hollywood, and my friend's a bartender there, so I go in and see him sometime. But this is where like a lot of actors go and hang out.
Yeah.
But I was in the bathroom, and there's only one urinal, and so I'm done. I'm whatever. I finish, and I turn around, and there's John Hamm standing right behind me, waiting to use the urinal. And I guess I get a little too close to him. He's like, well, I'm like, oh, hey. That's kind of one of those situations.
That's hilarious. And we could probably do a whole episode on running into celebrities in places in LA.
Yeah.
I think I've had like 3 or 4 different run-ins with different people.
Yeah. One of my greatest acting experience so far was in a music video. It was technically a background job, but it was a music video for the band Five Finger Death Punch. You've probably seen my posts on it.
Yeah.
But I got the full zombie prosthetic makeup, and if you see me in the video, you see pictures. You can't even tell it's me, but it was such a great experience. Oh, you told me not to bump this.
That's fine.
But and it was another thing. You're a background actor. You show up to set. You don't know what they're gonna do. Yeah, it says zombie, but I'm like, I don't know how
much makeup's gonna go into that.
But I show up there like, okay, go over to the makeup, sit in this chair here, and they're putting, and then they take 2 hours to put this prosthetic makeup all over me.
So they don't even warn you that you're gonna be in makeup for 2 hours,
right? Oh. Yeah. The life of a background actor. But and then I see the finished product. I'm like, this is beyond anything I could have ever imagined doing on a job like this or today. So
that's awesome.
I really value some of the experiences I've had that. And being in it all day, I'm like, this is gonna look so. I kind of just soldiered through, because I'm like, this is gonna look so cool in the video. I know it is, even though after 8 hours it's kind of bothering me. It's hard to eat and everything, but I'm like, okay, now I know I can do prosthetic for future reference if need be. So
that's pretty dope. Well, you finally got to be a zombie.
Yes.
First, you killed a bunch of zombies in one of our films.
Yes.
And now you are a zombie.
Yes.
So is this music video a continuation of our story? Because when
it probably is.
When our film ends, we have no idea what happens to your character.
It probably is, because I'm
pretty sure.
We're most likely get bitten and become a zombie, and then,
cool. Yeah. I think it's funny. William and I have talked about like doing a sequel to that short several times. I'm like, if we could come up with something good,
let's do it.
You just like had.
Yeah, I feel like we were able to like bring in an action-packed, kick-ass 3-minute short film, and I feel like we can continue that.
Yeah. I just think it'd be like a great opening. Like you just see this pile of zombies, and then Aaron just crawls his way out, and boom. Now let's move into the next part of our show.
Sure.
Where we just talk about movies, talk about what we've been watching.
Okay, great.
What have you been watching lately? What shows are you kind of really excited about?
I really love the show Fargo. It's one of my favorite shows.
I have not watched Fargo. Brian, have you watched Fargo?
I want to watch that. It's during Prohibition time, correct?
Well, each kind
season's
of
different, right?
Each season, it's an anthology. Mm-hmm. Each season is different, but there's one thing that ties it to this previous season.
Okay.
And the first season of Fargo, there was one thing that tied it to the movie. Mm-hmm. So it all takes place in.
I did see the movie. I just haven't seen the show.
That was going to be my second question. If it's tied to the movie, because I know there's a show and a movie.
So the show, the movie, and every season of the show, it all takes place in the same world.
Okay.
Even though it's different time periods, and the current season is. It has been in Minnesota. The current season is like St. Louis in 1950s.
Oh.
In a mob war between the Italians and the African American gang led by Chris Rock, who does a great job. You wouldn't think of him as a dramatic actor. You know him as a comedy actor. But it's halfway into the season. I think he's doing an incredible job. But I just love the storytelling. It's very unconventional storytelling, which I'm a fan of.
I like that kind of stuff.
Noah Hawley, who kind of got...
When you say unconventional storytelling, what exactly do you mean by that? So like not your typical 3-act structure, not... like a?
I would say it has a 3-act structure. It's just, if you know the Coen brothers, Noah Hawley's really taken that style of the Coen brothers and, maintained the quirkiness.
Okay.
But, made really interesting characters. There's each season there's a character you're rooting for and there's a character you hate.
Yeah.
And you kind of go back and forth between the two. And I think the dynamics between all the characters, in addition to crafting a great story, but not in a way that insults the intelligence of the audience. I like stories where I have to think about what's going on and
when it's left up to the interpretation of the viewer.
Right, and Fargo really does that for me, and it's unpredictable. There's twists and turns.
What service is that on?
FX.
FX?
Yeah.
Oh, wait. So I can.
You could watch it if you have FX.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
so I can just DVR that.
You could, yeah.
Oh, sweet, I'll do that. You told me too earlier. You just watched Borat 2.
Yes.
Which I also watched. Have you seen this yet, Brian?
I haven't. I need to watch it. I know I got to watch it.
It's must see.
It's must.
Yeah, I did see the first one. I remember the first one.
Let's see how much we can talk about without spoiling anything for you, Brian.
Right.
Okay.
What was your favorite part of the movie?
What was my favorite? There were so.
Rudy Giuliani.
That it ended with that, and by that point, I had just been like, this is funny, but so many times I was just like, oh my god. Yeah. There were so many times in the movie. By the time it got to the Rudy Giuliani scene, I'm like, okay, I'm not. I've been desensitized to all of it. But
the thing I love about Borat is that it feels like a documentary, but it's just Sacha Baron Cohen playing pranks on people, which is hilarious. I think the best moment for me was either when he dressed as Donald Trump and broke into the Mike Pence rally. Or when he was dressed up as that hillbilly and played that bashing Obama song that he wrote with those dudes. So there's a sequence, Brian, where I think in the middle of filming is when COVID hit and everyone was quarantined, and he ended up staying with these two alt-right dudes in the middle of nowhere, North Carolina or South Carolina, wherever they shot it. And he stays in their cabin for 5 days, and all they're talking about is right-wing conspiracy theories, which he's a far left dude.
Right. So he was just going with it and agreeing with them and everything. Yeah. That was the best part.
And they wrote this song that was like, Obama's a terrorist and hates America and all this stuff. And he goes to a rally and plays this song on stage. Yeah. And which apparently they didn't show all of it, but I read something at the end of it that the whole rally ended up kind of turning into a riot, and people were chasing him, trying to kill him, and he got into an ambulance and somehow got away.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but he's he legit said that he feared for his life in that sequence.
I think what I love about Borat is that it displays the absurdity of politics. It's just it shows both sides, and it shows the radicalism and how silly and insane it is.
My other favorite scene is the baby scene when they go to the clinic with his daughter, and she's like, he put the baby in me, and the the guy is not outraged in the least.
So that's hilarious. So Brian, there's another scene where I guess they're at a bakery.
They're
or
at a
something,
bakery,
and he gives his daughter, his fake daughter, he gives his daughter a cupcake, and it has a little baby on top of it, and she accidentally swallows the baby. Yeah. And so they're trying to get it out of her, and what they end up doing is they go to a pro-life clinic, which is actually run by a pastor, I think, right? The guy that is in the room with them as the pastor of a church, and he's just like, yes. So she wanted to have a treat, and so I wanted to give her a treat, so I put the baby inside of her. And the way he's phrasing everything just makes it sound like he impregnated his daughter. And the guy's like,
oh my gosh. And she's like, yeah, my dad put the baby inside me. and he's like, wait, you're her father? And he's like, yeah. Yes.
Oh man, the dude looked so just shocked,
Uncomfortable.
yeah, extremely uncomfortable, because he's like, you're basically coming into
Are they talking about incest? Like what?
incest and abortion, all in a pro-life clinic. But that's what I mean, was like these kind of pranks that he plays on people are just absolutely absurd.
He's and like he's fearless.
Yeah,
like you said, I'm not surprised people were like chasing after him, and he has to escape.
That always scares me. You know, that scared me about Borat. I always thought, like, is this guy gonna be okay? Because I feel like when you push people to the limit, and sometimes when they really don't know what's going on, and it's actually a movie, like they are gonna do, you know, they might fight back or do crazy things back that you wouldn't anticipate, and you might get yourself hurt.
I was wondering how they even managed to get a lot of this footage, but I guess they pose as a documentary crew, and he poses as a journalist from another country, you know, trying to like make it. We're making a documentary about the state of America or whatever, and they get people in there.
Do you think he waited a long time for Borat 2 because he wanted to lie low so that it would be easier to interview people because they wouldn't know who he is?
That was part of it. Everybody, and they even put this in the movie. There's people that recognize him on the street. They're like, Borat, hey Borat, and people are chasing him. He's like, no, it's not me. So that's why he does a narration. He's like, everybody recognized me from the first movie, so I had to get disguised. So most of the rest of the movie, it's either his daughter or him in disguise.
Yeah,
dressed in various
he's
disguises.
got 2 or 3 different disguises.
Yeah.
And it's funny when he goes to pick up the costumes from the costume store, there's a Borat costume.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, oh, that looks like you. But the title, because they can't say Borat for licensing reasons, so it says stupid journalist or something.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And the guy's like, oh, this looks like you. Man.
I think he probably was like, I think he was probably inspired by Trump.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, I can never do anything like this again. And then Trump comes along. He's like, okay, I have to bring Borat back.
Yeah.
That's my thoughts.
But I thoroughly enjoyed it. I haven't laughed that hard in a while.
Same. Like pretty much every scene I was just crying, laughing. Yeah. I almost enjoyed it better than the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I definitely enjoyed it more than the first one. I haven't seen the first one since it was in theaters. Like it's been 15 years.
That's good to hear. I feel like sometimes sequels fall short to the original, so I definitely want to see it. And it's on Prime, right?
It's on Prime, yeah.
Yeah. I think especially in comedies, I think some of my favorite comedies, people tried to make sequels to them.
Speaking of sequels, I'm glad you brought this up, and I'll segue into this.
Yeah.
Theaters in LA are closed still, but theaters in OC are open. So I've been going. I have the AMC stubs, so I've been going to OC once a week.
Nice.
To like I think it's Anaheim, that area, see movies. Empire Strikes Back, because it's the 40th anniversary.
Yeah.
Is playing in the theaters right now.
What?
Yeah. So if it's still there, you got to see it. But
I'm gonna go. So are they playing? I'm assuming they're playing the newer special edition versions and not the original theatrical version.
They are, but the thing about
I don't mind the special editions, but
the thing about Empire as compared to Jedi or New Hope, there wasn't a lot of CG.
No, there wasn't.
They didn't
much.
add a lot of CG to it.
I think the only main changes they did, even in the special editions, were like they changed Boba Fett's voice and they reshot the actor who played the Emperor originally in Episode 5 is not the same guy who was in Episode 6 and in the prequels. So when they were filming Revenge of the Sith, they shot a sequence for him and redid the scene. Right. So was that scene in there?
So it was that scene. So it was the special edition, but still it is incredible. Just seeing it on the big screen totally stands the test of time. Like they just don't make movies like that anymore.
No, they don't.
But yeah,
even the new the episode we posted last week. I don't know if you've had a chance to listen to it yet.
Not yet,
but we just crapped all over the sequel trilogy.
What were they thinking with that?
It's just frustrating because it just feels like they in the beginning of the sequels, the very first movie, I feel like they introduced so many plot lines and then they just completely shat on like a ton of them.
I think on every episode for this show, there's got to be a moment we dedicate to shitting on the sequel trilogy.
Okay.
But have you had a chance to watch The Mandalorian, the TV show?
I have not. I've got to get.
Disney you don't have
Plus.
Disney.
I don't have Disney Plus, but
I would recommend Disney Plus solely for that show.
Okay,
it's top notch.
Okay,
we just did a review today, so don't listen to that episode.
Okay, now that I've got your recommendation,
I mean,
that's on my list.
Even if you just pay for it for 1 month, binge The Mandalorian.
Well, it's Pedro Pascal, right?
Yeah,
he's playing. He's been good in everything else. I've seen him in Game of Thrones and
Narcos.
Yeah, he's really good in Narcos. Because he's masked pretty much the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I don't think he's actually on set hardly at all for the filming because
that's funny.
I think he's got a couple scenes with the helmet off in the first one,
mm-hmm.
Which might be that's probably a spoiler. I shouldn't have said that.
That's all right.
But now you know. But I think it's mostly just voice acting. It to me it feels more like what the original Star Wars trilogy was than anything that Lucasfilm has tried to put out since then. It's really good stuff.
Great.
So what's next for you, man? So you're retiring from background. Are you going to focus on writing? Are you going to focus on more featured acting? What do you want to do?
So since I started in the film industry, I kind of go. I'm like kind of this pendulum swinging between writing and acting.
Yeah.
And definitely the retirement from background acting has given me an opportunity to focus more on writing.
Yeah.
I am going to take, who knows what the future is going to hold with the state of the world.
Yeah.
I made a decision very recently. I'm going to take the rest of 2020 and focus completely on writing.
Cool.
Like
awesome.
Almost 2 months every day for the next 2 months until the end of 2020. Just keep writing and see what comes of it, and hopefully I'll have something to show for it, and then be ready for 2021, whatever it's gonna throw at me. But I've been neglecting my writing, and it's just been a matter of time, and I think it's. I went through the writing program at UCLA, and I learned.
Really?
Did
you do that after you got into LA?
Yeah, when I first got to LA, it was a year-long program. I did the certificate in screenwriting. Awesome. I learned some things. I didn't come out of it a full-fledged screenwriter.
Yeah.
That's been more of a process. So it's just a matter of, I've had instructors saying it's just a matter of getting your butt in the chair and doing it.
Just doing it. Yeah.
So that's my plan. Just going to be doing it for the next 2 months.
Now you have some shorts you've written, right? Because we've talked about potentially producing a couple of something you've written. So.
I've written.
Write it now. Just write it now.
Write it now.
You write it now.
The spin-off podcast.
We will film it now. It's collaboration.
I love it.
No, but yeah. So what do you have like currently that you've written that you're like, this is something I would love to do. Do you have any projects that you like kind of want to move into production?
Well, the main one I want to move into production is it's a script I'm working on, and the whole idea is low budget, high concept. It's sci-fi involving time travel, but it all takes place. It basically all takes place in one interrogation room.
You've piqued my interest.
So, that's the main thing I'm working on now.
That's in one room.
It's in a police station. In a police station. So most of it takes place in the room, and then there's other scenes, various spots of the station. But I'm writing it with the idea of self-producing in mind, keeping it low budget.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much what we all do
exactly
all the time.
Exactly, but I also want it to be an interesting story.
Yeah.
So that's my current project.
Cool. That sounds exciting.
My low budget, high concept sci-fi feature.
Yeah, that's awesome. Let's talk more about that in the future.
Let's do it.
That sounds.
We will.
I've been. I think like one of my goals. I mean, as a writer, I don't write a lot, but I've got 4 features I'm writing. But I think like my real career goal is to be a DP. And I really want to do like sci-fi, but like kind of like low, like not doesn't have to be like Star Wars or anything crazy like that, but just like cool, like thoughtful sci-fi films. That's what I want to do.
I think we're on the same page here.
So sweet.
Write it now podcast. Oh gosh.
Yeah, we've talked about like 4 other spin-offs. We're like, we could talk about video games, like Play It Now, or what was we also like talking about food. Like we should do another
Eat
one
It
called
Now.
Eat It Now. Just go eat it. Just go try a new restaurant. Just stop making food at home. Actually, make food at home because it's cheaper and it's better for your budget.
Yeah.
But
wait, can we circle back to one thing? Would you say that background acting gig was the most uncomfortable time you've had on set? What's the most uncomfortable time we've had on sets? Like the worst sets that you guys have been on?
The most uncomfortable time I've had on set was last December. It was I know we don't want to name names, but it was for a Hallmark movie and super low budget, short-handed crew. Mm-hmm. It was December. It's not too cold in LA, but they had us outside.
Yeah.
I almost walked off that set. I don't know why I didn't, looking back on it.
Yeah.
But I sucked it up for another year. Well, another 3 months, because not long after that quarantine started. But just low pay, cold, no resources whatsoever. Everyone on the crew was such an asshole on this shoot. It's not usually my experience, but that one, and it's funny because like I'm quitting background acting after this, and I kept doing it for another year. I don't know why I did, but worst decision I ever made. Well, not the worst decision ever, but bad decision. But it takes a lot to get me to say like I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
But anyway,
that's crazy.
So that was that was actually my worst. That and the sandstorm. Yeah. I guess we can call it. Those two together were my two worst. So
yeah.
What about you guys?
I'm not gonna say what the name of the production was, but so the worst. I was doing sound on it. It's not that one. It's not that one.
Oh, it's not the
another
other one.
Okay. It is another one. I was doing sound on one, and so we pulled up to this hotel that was supposedly booked. Like we had booked a room inside the hotel, but the hotel staff didn't know that a crew was going to go into the room. That it was going to be like a film crew of like 12 to 15 people. And so the production essentially told us to like lie low and like wait to bring gear in. But like the gear that they were requesting was like, it was heavy grip gear to go into the hotel room. So they were obviously going to see us crossing the street. And then the way the hotel is positioned, like the staff would see you coming like with the equipment. So it was just ridiculous. It got to the point where I was like, hey, like I don't really feel comfortable doing this. And it got to the point where we got booted out of the hotel, and the production improvised by going to an abandoned gas station right across the street. This place had cameras, by the way. And so I don't know if that ended up getting put into the film, but so what ended up happening was the production pulled up one of the cars that talent was in for this scene, and then we shot like an improvisational scene in that abandoned gas station. And it was in LA, like, so it was clearly illegal, like we're on private property. And it was just like the most bizarre decisions I've ever seen made by a production. Like just really uncomfortable, really irresponsible, and people could have gotten arrested.
I have lots of experiences too with people who are at the very top just don't care about the crew and stuff.
I think I've had more experiences with people who are higher up who don't really know what they're doing, and then I kind of really don't know how to manage crews, and that's kind of been the frustrating thing. It's like I was on a shoot, and I won't give any details about this. I was on a shoot once, and like I'm filling out my paperwork, and I met this woman. She looked really young. She looked like a teenager, and I'm like, oh hi, I'm Aaron, whatever. She's like, oh hey, I'm one of the producers. I'm like, but you're 12. How are you a producer on this show? Wow.
But yeah.
Man.
Anyway.
Yeah, it's crazy. I don't know what like my worst experience on set is. It's tough to say. I remember one of my very, very early experiences. I was working on a commercial. This was when I was still in Kansas City, and it was. I think I was 2 years into film school, but that film school, like, it wasn't like our experience at Full Sail, where you're really on set doing a lot of like bigger productions. It was, you have 20 kids in our class, and they didn't have near the resources that we did at Full Sail. So the experience on set was never the same as like being on a film. So I go to like my first kind of big production experience, and I was a camera assistant, and I remember the DP turned to me and he's like, "Hey, go get me a 300." And I was like, "Cool." And I didn't want to act like I didn't know what he was talking about. So I was like, "All right, yeah, you got it." And then I walk over to the other assistant camera guy to ask him. I was like, "Hey, what's the 300? What does he want?" And the dude looks at me. He's like, "A 300-watt light." Like, and he said it so condescendingly. I'm like, this is my first experience on set, dude. Like, I don't know what this guy's asking for. Yeah. But the assistant cameraman was just like kind of an ass about it. Yeah. I'm like, cool. All right.
It's like everybody started once. The very, it wasn't a Full Sail shoot, but it was in Orlando with Full Sail people. The very first film set I was ever on. Yeah. I was PAing, but somebody on the set said, "Hey, can you go get me a C-stand?" I'd never been on this. I had no idea what a C-stand was. I'm like, sure, yes. And I walked to the grip truck and I said, "Hey, they need a C-stand." And he's like, "Oh, here you go." And he hands me a C-stand. I'm like, okay, that went well.
That's a smarter way to do it.
Yeah. I didn't
tell someone else that they need something and they'll hand it to you.
Yeah. I'm just like, I look around. It could have been anyone. I'm like, "Hey, I need a C-stand." So he grabs one and hands it to me.
That's smart. So that's how you started to learn.
Yeah. So I was just like, because I didn't want to be that guy and be like, "Oh, what's a C-stand?" So I'm just thinking, I'm like, how can I?
Man, that's fun.
How can I do this in a way where they don't realize I don't know what that is?
That is, and that's kind of like, I think, like the metaphor for working in Hollywood. You kind of present yourself as this person who can do whatever.
Oh, I mean,
do whatever they need.
It's like
fake it till you make it.
So how's that kind of been for you now that you're getting out of being a background extra? I know you've been updating your LinkedIn and your resume and stuff, applying for jobs. So like,
I think one thing I'm doing is I can say like I have 5 years of experience in the film industry. So that, I think I have that going for me, but also I'm learning how to use my past careers. Yeah. Kind of drawing on that and like using that to move myself forward as well.
Yeah. So speaking of your past careers, what did you do before you went to Full Sail? Before you got your master's?
So before I went to Full Sail, I was a classroom teacher. Huh? And before that, I was in the Army.
Oh, so, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Joined the Army and learned Chinese while I was in the Army, and I was a Chinese language teacher. Yeah. And so that's one aspect of myself that I'm trying to work into my...
Yeah. What pushed you then to go to Full Sail, get a degree in filmmaking?
It's interesting. It all kind of just worked. It's nothing is ever like clear cut. You know, you always kind of arrive at things in a roundabout way, or I have. Maybe I'm alone in that. I had lived in Florida. My dad was retired in Florida. I lived with him. I happened to meet a guy. This was probably 2 years before I went to Full Sail. I happened to meet a guy who was a sound engineer. He's like, "Oh, I teach at Full Sail." I'm like, "What's that?" And so that was my first introduction. Yeah. Moved back up north, and then had really had it with the cold and the career. I didn't even have a full-time teaching job. I was substituting. Yeah. And I'm like, I need something different in life. And I had done community theater, which led to me getting more back into acting, which led me wanting to pursue film. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, there's this school in Florida where I can learn film. Really good, it was a really painless admissions process if you're a veteran. Oh, really? I know you might have had different experience applying, but I mean, they really walked me through all of it. I had education benefits that were going to cover most of the tuition, and I was close to my dad. I don't know. It just seemed like the right program for me at the right time. I didn't want to go through another traditional master's program that would have taken I liked the fact that the program was a year long.
Yep.
And I could start working after that year was over. I didn't want to do like a 2-3 year master's program.
Yeah, same.
I think we were in a similar boat there. But yeah, it was just kind of a combination of different criteria, getting back to Florida, being closer to my dad, and getting someplace warm, and all of that.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Aaron. I've had a pleasure. I mean, it's been. I mean, other than last week, it's been almost like 6 months since we've
been a long time. Yeah, it was well before COVID. It was well before COVID.
So it's probably been a year then since we last hung out.
What is time anymore, guys?
Exactly.
What is time? We don't know. But yeah, thanks for sharing your experience.
Thank you for having me. I hope people, whoever listens gets something out of my experience.
That's all we can hope for.
My ramblings. I tend to ramble if I'm off script, but
I do too.
Maybe
so
maybe you can edit it into something that makes me sound clever.
That's our forte. We'll do that. Where can people find you at social media?
Social media, Instagram, the Aaron Bray, Twitter, Aaron Bray. In the process of putting together my own website, aaron-bray.com. So any of those places. Cool. So if you just probably the Aaron Bray on Instagram is the best place.
All right, cool. Well, thanks again for being on the show. As always, our music is by Diego Chi. And thanks to all of our listeners, all of our viewers. Remember, go out and film it now.
Film it now.
Film it now.